name is Barclay Radebaugh. I want to welcome you to session 2 of our Nations of Coaches preseason growth series. We're really glad that you've chosen to join in with us this morning. We had an incredible week last week, learning the fundamentals of being a great assistant coach with LaValle Jordan, Dick Bender, and CY. As many of you know, Nations of Coaches is designed to serve you, to help you grow on and off the court. We exist for you, to help coaches, to serve coaches. At Nations of Coaches, our mission is to see coaches and all that they influence impacted for the glory of God. Our vision is to equip coaches and to leave a legacy of excellence. We try to do that by serving, connecting, and equipping. We've been around about 20 years. We understand how important it is in our ever-changing profession to grow and to continually stay current, cutting edge, to be lifelong learners. So let's get it. Let's get after it this morning. We are super excited to have Bob Richey as our guest today. And remember, as soon as Bob is done speaking, stay on for an incredible Nations of Coaches character moment with the legendary Dale Clayton. Anytime you can hear from Dale Clayton, you're going to be a better coach and a better person. Bob Richey is entering his 8th season as the head coach of the Furman Paladins. He's won 70% of his games. Amazing. He led his 2022-2023 squad to the NCAA tournament and to the memorable upset of the Virginia Cavaliers in the first round. Bob and his wife, Jessica, have 4 beautiful children. So let's welcome Coach Richey. Good morning, Coach.
Coach, how you doing?
So good. What an honor to have you. Thank you for joining in. Before we get started, Coach, just one quick question. If you don't get this one right, we're just going to shut the whole thing down. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Your top recruit ever, and I'm going to give you a hint. It starts with a J and ends with an Essica.
My wife, Jessica, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What an incredible family. How's your family doing?
Oh, we're good. We're good. Just, we got one in high school, one in middle school, and then we got 2 youngins, one on the way. So we're pretty busy, and, but all things are good, and, all is well.
How's the first couple of days of practice been?
It's been good. We're under renovation to our facility here, and so they're putting $40 million, basically redoing all of Timmons Arena.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit displaced, but we're making the most of it. So we practiced the first 3 days downtown at the Well Arena, which is where we play in the majority of our games. So finished up last night, got a much needed off day today. So the guys definitely excited about that.
Great. Before we get started, talking about analytics, you're the best I've ever seen with analytics. I wanted to ask you just a couple questions. We got a lot of young coaches, a lot of great coaches on this morning. What's your why? Why'd you decide to get into coaching?
Well, I had a lot of basketball in my life growing up from, obviously playing, but also my uncle was a coach at McNeese State, and I had another uncle that actually played at LSU, and, I was just around it a lot. And, as I was a young kid, I just fell in love with the game. And, really probably when I was in middle school, I thought, man, it'd be a fun way to make a living doing that. But Dad was a doctor, and anybody that's been a kid of a doctor knows the pressure to become a doctor. And so that was the route that I thought I had to do. And, did 2 years of pre-med in college, and then just decided to chase a dream. And, it was one of those situations where, I was a bad D2 player, and, didn't have any name recognition, didn't have any experience at the Division I level, but, wanted to try to figure out a way where I could be in a lot of my different gift sets, but at the same time, being a passion, and, to be able to communicate, to be able to compete, to be able to lead, to be able to influence, to be able to have relationships that I felt like could be impactful. All that together was something that, was a view that I thought I could have, lasting impact. And, I think that's the unfortunate part of where the game's at right now in terms of just all the landscape and all the discussions. I think we've lost a little bit of way of why we all got in this, and we've got to make sure we're convicted to get back to that.
Absolutely. You've always been a coach with strong convictions. I've known you a long time. High standards. What are some of the core standards that you have at Furman?
So we basically have two sets of threes, and we've operated our program from the day one from these threes, and three of them are basketball core values and three of them are program values. And so, our program values are non-basketball related, but it's more purpose driven of what we want to do and what we want to be about. We talk about how we connect, how we work, and then having a greater purpose and perspective in why we do what we do. So, the first thing, I started this when I got the job, is what we call our Further the Man program. A little bit of a play on words, Furman in there, but it really is a intentional program that we utilize to develop our players into better people. And since April 7th, 2017, my biggest conviction in how I wanted to lead was if we grow people, the player is going to come right behind it. And, so everything we do around here, we want to make sure that we're investing in our players at a unique level. And so, from all the speakers we bring in to the jobs that we've been able to get our players to, bringing a tailor in here in the fall and getting them a suit every year. And, we've done etiquette classes, we've done, resume to play programs, all these different things. That's the first thing. We want to make sure it stays there. Number two, we have a core value around here. We call it deliberate improvement now. And that's how we work. Right. And so, this sounds harsh, but losers want to get better too. Right. Like everybody wants to improve, and the intention to improve is not good enough. And so as a program, we never want to just be intending to improve. We want to be deliberate in our improvements. So there's going to be a lot of planning that goes into that. And we'll talk about that as we get further into this, but we want to be deliberate. We don't want to just be going off of what everybody else is doing. We don't want to be going off of what we, see as the flavor of the month in the ice cream shop. Like, we want to be deliberate in our planning. And then the now piece of it, if you walk in our facility, you see it. It says, that immediacy, that urgency. We want to operate in the now. And we want to, we play 30 plus games a year.
Yeah.
65. You're talking about 330 days approximately that you're not playing a game. We've got to win those 330 days. And, we want, whether it's June, whether it's September, whether it's April, whether it's March, whatever month it is, we want to work in the now. And so that's a big core value for us. And then the third one is, just how we connect and the better together aspect of what we do here. And, we want to get better, but we want to understand that we also have an obligation to do it together. And that's not like some, hey, we're doing this because we think we're better than you, and like, hey, we're better people. It's really the understanding that two can accomplish more than twice as much as one, and that's huge in winning. And so, that value, the first value and the second and the third value, in my personal opinion, are under attack in our business. And if we lose sight of those two things, you're really going to have to, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to have to really evaluate why you're doing it. And, I've never in the summer, just shooting straight here, but being on the road, I've never seen more misery in our profession. And it doesn't matter what level, it doesn't matter what you're getting paid. It doesn't matter, everybody was just complaining and miserable. And I think a lot of that has to do with, because of all the new landscape, getting off of our purpose and just feeling like we have to do whatever we have to do to endure and survive this. That's really not a lasting recipe for joy in this. And, times are changing. There's no doubt about it. But just because times are changing doesn't mean purpose has to change. And
Right.
we have to adapt, and we have to figure some things out, but purpose has to stay at the core.
Absolutely. There's a couple extra hurdles now to get to the hearts of our players, but it is so worth it. It is so worth it to jump over those hurdles to get to the hearts of our players. It's really worth it. What are 4 or 5 of your personal habits? I'm big in studying this right now. Personal habits that have led to your success, things that you do every day. You're a routine guy. You like that. I know that about you. And what are some of those personal habits that you do to prepare you for practice, prepare you to be a great coach?
So I have 6 things I try to do basically every day. And for those listening, I'm sure a lot of people have read Atomic Habits. I think James Clear is a really good thinker, and there's actually an app called Atoms, ATOMS, and I had our staff download it this summer actually, and it's so simple. But I'm a big believer in just compounding habits, right? That's just the daily compounding effect. And so mine are super simple. I'm a late night person by nature. I tried to fight that for years, but I kind of gave up on it. And but I'm very routine in the morning. So, I'm a slower starter in the morning. I like to get up, between 6 and 6:30, have a good cup of coffee, and then right away, I want to do some type of spiritual, reading, whether in my Bible, whether it's, something that I can get some type of overarching thought. I was in a pretty intense Bible study starting that championship run with a group of business leaders, and you had to read about 3 chapters a day in it, and
Oh,
try to stay ahead. So that would take me about 15, 20 minutes. And then I have another thing that I've done, since I work for you, to be honest, where I try to read 10 pages of anything every day. And, a lot of people ask me how do I read, with all the things that are going. 10 pages doesn't take long. And,
right.
sometimes it can be 20, sometimes it can be 25, but if you can take 10 pages a day over a month, that's 300 pages. That's about the average length of a book. You can knock out 12 books in a year. And what it does is it just stimulates your mind. It gets your mind off, the chaos of all the stuff that you have going on. And, whether it be a player, whether it be a staff member, whether it be a booster, whether it be an administrator, whether it be my family, there's going to be a lot of people I have to lead through the day. And so I really want to sharpen my mental. So my spiritual and my mental, I try to knock that out first. After that, I've got, I wear a Oura ring, which I know a lot of people Apple Watch, Whoop, but different things to manage stress, sleep, and the things of that nature. So I try to hit my activity goal on that of whatever that tells me I need to do that day. And, whether that be walking, whether it be a quick workout, but I want to do something physical, make sure I'm staying active. And a lot of times in our profession, you're combining things, recruiting calls, take a walk, different things like that.
Yeah.
And so those kind of knock it out. I try to watch a half of anything every single day in basketball. So that's something that I've done forever. Really trying to just stay sharp in terms of watching film and being disciplined there. And so in the off season, I'm watching a half of something. In the season, it starts to transition to us, and it starts to transition to practice film and things like that. But I really want to make sure I get that done. For me, keeping the relationships with our players, I try to have one intentional interaction with a player every single day.
That's
So that
good.
could be, and that's not before practice or on the practice floor. Like that doesn't count. It's on my calendar. It's scheduled. It could be something, a walk. It could be a lunch. It could be something. But I try to do something like that every day, and then also try to make sure I have something intentional with my family every day. And so really, I know that sounds like, hey, that's not really super complicated. It's really not. But when you try to knock all 6 of them out in a day, you
Yeah.
have to schedule and you got to manage your time. But time management is critical in what we do. I think time and money are very similar. If you don't manage them, you're going to waste it and it's going to disappear. But if you do manage it, it's going to go further, and you're also going to get the compounding effect of those things building over time. And I'm a huge believer in that.
Yeah. With your success, coach, people have come after your assistant coaches. Happens all over. People want a part of Furman, so they come and you've had some positive, super positive staff turnover. It happens in great programs. And what do you look for in the hiring process? We've got a bunch of young coaches out there that desire to work for a guy like you someday. What do you look for when you're hiring an assistant coach?
Well, this is the area in the business that, there's not like clinics you can go to teach how to hire people. And I probably struggled here when I first got the job and, didn't really understand exactly what, not necessarily what our program needed, but what we needed internally. And as I've grown and gotten a little bit more comfortable in my role, I don't want anybody in here that's just like me. I don't really like yes people. I like anybody that knows me well that's listening knows I don't mind a little bit of confrontation. I think tension helps people strain and get better if they're doing it together for the right reason. And I think challenging one another, having a culture where you're willing to challenge is really, really healthy. But I think in order for that challenge to be effective, there's got to be alignment. And, there needs to be alignment in our way, right? In our values. And we don't have to be identical, but we have to be aligned. And I think that's something I look for. I also look for, one thing I've noticed early in this is, people have different reasons of why they want to get in this. And if you come work here, we're going to operate with a pretty large vision. 10 years ago, nobody thought we could get a whole lot done here. People said it was a bad job. You can't win at Furman. Terrible arena, terrible facility, got too high of academics. And one of the big things that we had to do to get where we are today is we had to eliminate limiting beliefs. And we had to operate without those. We had to figure out what are the limiting beliefs that people are crutching on here, and then how do we eliminate them? And then I started realizing that, hey, you know what? Like, not everybody operates with a vision and a purpose that gets excited about, like, let's go change a school, let's go change an arena, like, let's go do something that's never been done before. A lot of people are in this because they want the next job. And so, I've only been at two places. I've been at Charleston Southern, I've been at Furman, and I've taken a lot of pride in trying to make our job our next job. And the business is different there. Like, it's all the networking and what you got to do, and you got to make a certain amount of calls and all this stuff. Our job's really hard. And when you get off basis there and you start trying to do your job now so that you can get something later, this business will spit you out. But when you can
Yes.
totally saturate yourself in what you're doing there and just say, hey, how do we make this better? Not everybody's built like that. And so I started seeing early in my career, like, not that this makes me better than anybody else, but it just, for Furman, like, my vision was a little bit overwhelming for some people of what we wanted to do and what that was going to take. And so it's, at first we had a lot of turnover early, and then I started hiring people from places that had similar mentalities and visions and alignment to the values. And I started hiring people from Virginia. I hired somebody from Xavier. I hired somebody from Florida. And then all of a sudden I'm asking them, I'm like, hey, how is it here? And they're like, it's fine. It's just like working for Chris Mack. It's just like working for Tony Bennett. It's just like, and those guys all stayed. And, we had 5 years of basically the same staff. Jimmy got the Anderson head job. And then last year, man, I mean, we had, Matt Aldred, our strength coach, came here for around $30,000. He obviously got a huge pay raise to go to Michigan. And we obviously invested in him through the years that he was here. But I was so happy to see him get that. And, Jeremy got to go back with Chris Mack at Charleston to be his top guy, and obviously got a pretty good pay raise there. And we had 2 support guys that basically doubled their money. And so that was actually pretty fun to be able to see guys
Right.
be able to grow their family and get the next opportunity. And then, we were able to also add some good people here.
That's one of the best things that you do. We, as you know, we at Charleston Southern, we had 5 assistant coaches become Division I head coaches, just from our small little school. And one of the greatest things a head coach can do is prepare an assistant coach for the next position. And you've done that very well. You've done it very well. Last question, and then we're going to get over to analytics and let you take over. Really interesting, interested in this. How do you handle conflict?
Well, I mean, I think, like we talked about, conflict can be healthy. I think there's a misnomer in business society that, hey, you're always aiming for cohesion. The problem with cohesion is, it can make you complacent, right? It can make you, if everything's always harmonious, you're probably not going to challenge yourself. You're probably not going to look for a better way. You're probably not going to innovate. Problems create innovation because they force solutions. Okay. So the trick in our business is figuring out, like, I mean, if you read Twitter, which I don't have Twitter, I got rid of all that during COVID, but obviously my staff keeps me up with the humor. I mean, we've lost all our players and all our staff, and we're going to win 3 games this year, and we're going to hell in a handbasket. Okay. So, we've got to sit around and challenge each other. Like, hey, we did get 2 of our best players that went high major, and they had 1 year left. And then we got to figure out, how do we operate in the portal? How do we align ourselves and figure out, how does this work in the way we do it? Well, those aren't easy conversations. You don't want people looking at you saying, hey, like, hey, just go do what you ever want to do, and we'll support you. So you want to make sure that and I think, going back to what I talked about earlier, as long as you're aligned and you have common purpose and you have common vision, then everybody sitting at that table is going to want to have a discussion about how do we move the program forward. And so there's an interesting book out there, if you guys like to read, it's called Messy. And it's not a popular book, but it's a book that really it's very eye-opening, and it talks about the ability to get comfortable when things aren't going how you want them to. And sometimes in our business, that's when the pressure gets ratcheted up, and that's when people really start to panic, right? Like panic is typically a function of unbelief. So, when things aren't going how you want them to go, a lot of leaders, they lose their organizations because they start to panic. Really, that's a time where, hey, if you've got good conflict and you've got good dialogue and you've got good discussion, you can create solutions and innovations there that will push your program ahead. And so we have all kind of points in our program that are really neat, from my first year and us having to bench our best player, to what that led to, from the buzzer beater that everybody saw in the Chattanooga game, to that propelling us to 28 wins in an NCAA tournament win. We have all kind of moments where we can go back and we can look at, hey, here was the suffering, okay, or the conflict or the tension, and then here's the blessing that came from that. And that's actually a biblical concept. There, you can't find a single blessing in the Bible and Scripture, Old Testament, New Testament, where there wasn't suffering before it. And I think a lot of times in our business, like, we're so afraid of it, like we're so scared to like see things change. And I think the best have to be able to embrace that and lead through it.
Coach is watching. I hope you're taking notes. You are getting some wisdom this morning. I came to your practice last year, Coach, and you let me come in the film room, and as I watched you teach, it was amazing. I've never seen it done like you do it. And you used analytics over and over and over again, and you kept the attention of your team showing film for 25, 30 minutes. And there's this view in our profession, wow, everything's got to be so short, and we got to keep the attention of our players. You could have heard a pin drop. And then your players started to participate in the analytics and understand what you are teaching using analytics. So take the screen now, Coach. It's all yours, and teach us about analytics. What are some of the key analytics that you evaluate your team performance with? How many? Do you mention analytics at halftime? And lastly, do you use analytics? How do you use analytics to effectively teach and grow a team? So it's all yours, Coach. We're listening and taking notes.
All right, thank you. All right, well, first of all, I want to thank Barclay, and he gave me my first job, and wouldn't be in the position I am today without him. 2006, I was graduate from North Greenville, and he offered me a spot on staff. And head coaches, assistants, I worked for 3 head coaches, and all 3, and starting with Barclay, let me touch every single aspect of the business. And I got to do things at a young age at Charleston Southern that I couldn't have done anywhere else. And I was calling baseline out of bounds at 25 years old. I was calling offensive plays in certain situations at 26 years old. At 27, he let me basically take the whole offense. And that's when I really started to learn how hard it was to be in the middle of a game and have to make real decisions. And a lot of people in the country, you might be listening today and you think, well, man, I just keep stats, and I'm just sitting there during games, and I'm not able to feel what the burden is of having to make a decision. And I tell this in a joking way, but it was a formative point in my career. And Coach probably doesn't totally remember this, but we were playing at Wilmington in what used to be the Bracket Buster. And we were up there, and they had a whiteout, and it was sold out. And we're in this game, and it's back and forth. And there's like a minute and a half to go. And he looks at me, and I'll never forget, he looks at me, he says, "Hey, call something good." And I remember thinking, like, the pressure of that moment, hey, listen, this game could be decided on what we do right here. Well, we had a really good guard that night that was playing well in Jamarco Warren, and it wasn't super complicated. It's like, hey, let's figure out a way to get this guy shot. And he made the shot, and we went on to win the game, and it was a big win for our program. And it was a couple moments out of there that you feel the burden of how hard it is to win, right? You start to understand how to get your best players the ball where they need to get the ball. and then just how to prepare for those moments. And when I came to work for Jeff Jackson here for 2 years and then Nico Medved for 4, the ability to be able to put myself in situations where I could be a part of decision making specifically in the game. When I got the head job at 33 years old here, I felt like that advanced my ability to be a head coach. And it's critical for you guys to be able to do that as well. A couple of things real quick before I talk about analytics. College basketball is all going to hell and everything's messed up. Okay. That's all you hear right now. And the first thing I want to tell everybody on the screen is, as assumed believers, okay, in this organization, Nations coaches, there might be some people on the screen today that aren't believers, which is great too. I think it's really critical. Like, we can talk numbers and analytics all we want all day. We have to understand here that, like, first of all, we've got to quit complaining ourselves. And that's got to be on this screen, right? This business needs us right now. And we have to understand that the more we complain, we're going to lose our ability to influence. And, Stephen Covey, probably one of the first books I ever read, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you haven't read it, I would suggest it. But one of his principles in there is begin with end in mind. And I think in our business right now, like, you have to take some time to begin with your end in mind. Like, what is your ROI on the time and the investment that you're putting in this? And what are you actually trying to do? Like challenge yourself, right? Like, judge yourself. Am I doing this for the right reasons? Because at the end of the day, like, where this thing's heading, nobody knows. And I think people are wasting a lot of time trying to figure it out. But I really believe in my personal conviction that as we watch this unfold and however it unfolds, there's going to be a lot of same as ever to this. And when we all look back on it, we're going to be so drenched in the complaining that, hey, this is where it's going and it's not good. And then when we get in like 5, 10, 20-year clumps, we're going to look back and we're going to say, you know what? The same thing that won in all of history still won. And so whether it's military, whether it's sports teams, whether it's businesses, purpose is going to win. Consistency of attack is going to win. What are your values? And do you have the conviction to stick to those values? Do you have differentiators? And then at the end of the day, like, go listen to any graduation speech, go listen to any, highly successful person speak. And they're always going to talk about at the end, the relationships. And I think there's a lot of pseudo relationships happening right now in our business, right? Like, can I have enough of a relationship that he'll play well enough for me so that we'll win? That's not a relationship. Okay. That's using somebody. That's you hoping that you can leverage them, making them think you like them so that they'll go play better. The relationship has nothing to do with the role. The relationship has nothing to do with the return of what this player produces for you. The relationship is, can you figure out a way in this situation that, hey, how do we leverage college basketball to serve us as opposed to us serving it? And so, a verse that I've kind of held on, as we've kind of gone through this, Luke 9:62, Jesus said to him, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. I think we've got to look ahead, and I think we got to figure out, like, hey, can we still produce relationships that are deep and that are impactful and that last a lifetime, right? In what we look at this transitioning era in college basketball. And, one thing we talk about a lot around here a lot is 3 types of people: those that make it happen, those that watch it happen, those that wake up at noon and say, what the hell just happened? And we've got to be in that first group. We have to make it happen. And so I want to challenge us in here to make sure that we understand that character development through athletics, like, there's going to be qualities in this that always endure. You've got an opportunity to teach players consistency. I think that's really hard in today's time. We probably all struggle with that. What are you doing to try to create a consistent person, right? Like, not just a player, but a person. We've got the ability to impact confidence. I think as players, as people transition from 18 to 22, figuring out what they're going to do in the world, can you have a relationship that you can see confidence grow because of the relationship, not because of the film you're watching, not because of, what you're doing, but like, what's the confidence in this person? Is it growing because they feel like they're growing? At the end of the day, we all feel better when we're producing and we're growing. We've got to offer that for our players. Concentration, that's obviously going out the window. Barclay just alluded to that a little while ago. People think it's crazy. We watch, hour-long film sessions here, but we know when we took this job, we had to get smart, skilled, tough. And, we had to use the Furman degree in academics here for an ability to win, not a deterrent from winning. And so the ability to teach concentration, teaching people how to focus, and then obviously toughness to be able to endure and to be able to navigate adversity. We have those abilities every day to go out there and impact these people. Real quick, if you got a piece of paper, take a pen and a paper and just do an X and a Y axis for me. Just go north and south and just go east and west and make a nice little T chart there. Barclay asked us, how we run our program. Since I took the job, and if you've heard me speak before, we talk about the two, going back to tensions, okay, two ideas that would appear to have direct tension with each other that must be done at a high level to win in anything in life. And we've operated on these two things mostly at a decent level. I think last year we got off track a little bit in these two categories, but right on the going up, right deep care, right on the left side there. And then on the bottom, right high standard. And so really, like, people think in coaching that these two, like, you have to pick one, right? So, man, if I care for my players a lot and I've got good relationships for them, well, if I call them out, then, are they going to like me? And this idea of deep care becomes, am I liked? And then I start making decisions on making sure that I'm liked as opposed to am I leading? Well, if you got the other side of it, right? Like if I have, man, I'm gonna have this high standard. Well, you know what? If they don't do it, they got to go, and it's they either do it or they don't, and this is the standard, and we don't really care about what they do. They just got to come in here and do it. So you got your boxes here, okay? Bottom left, deep care's low, standards low. Just write apathy. If both things are low, you're going to have an apathetic program. You're not going to have a lot of programs in the country that really are just, you walk in there every day and they say, hey, I don't want to practice today. I don't want to watch film. I don't want to lift weights. That's not how programs erode. Programs erode from apathy, right? They go into weights and it's just another day. They go into practice and it's just, hey, how do we get through this? They go into a film session. They don't concentrate. Okay. Go to the top there, top left corner, and deep care's high, standards low. You got comfort. Okay. So everybody loves each other. Everybody's getting along. We're connected, but you know what? We're not holding each other accountable, but man, we like it. We're comfortable. Sometimes this can create some false hope, right? That, hey, we care about one another, but all of a sudden, man, when adversity hits and losses hit, you're trying to get back to standard. You're trying to ratchet the standard up. A lot of times you can have guys actually rebel against it because they don't feel like they felt that early on. And then you've got a mess to clean up. So you want to stay out of that, obviously. Go to the bottom right. You've got high standard, man. You're coaching, you're holding guys accountable. Deep care is low, though. Okay, stress, and we all see the effects of that. These players, they don't always know how to cope with it. They're self-medicating. They're doing different things to avoid stress, and we've got to make sure as coaches we're not adding to that. And then top right, just write growth. Okay, so when I took the job, I wrote 2 words on a piece of paper: grow period, people period. Try to operate that from day one. If you want to help people grow, the care's got to be high and the standards got to be high, and you've got to be able to do those two things at once. And a lot of times I feel like that's where coaching can get lost. And so if there's nothing else I can give you today, I would challenge you to keep that on your desk, keep that where you can see it. Ask yourself, are we doing this at a unique level, and be able to operate there. All right. So analytics, it's something that a lot of people talk about right now. I'm a contrarian by nature for anybody that knows me. So I'm going to give you a couple of things here this morning that you'll be excited about, I'm sure, but it's going to be also probably a little bit different than what you were thinking was going to come up here. I think in analytics, you have to understand that a competitive advantage is only a competitive advantage if you're one of few people doing it. All right. So I think the worst thing we see in analytics right now is everybody's chasing what everybody's doing. And it's really the death trap of a lot of coaches to stay in this mode of replication and not understanding from a business standpoint, if I'm constantly replicating, then the best I can possibly do is second place. And I'm probably going to be lagging right off the curve of innovation because I'm just trying to replicate somebody else that's done it in front of me. When you see companies and when you see dynasties in sport and you see programs that are humming, you're going to see not replication, you're going to see differentiation. And so you've got to be able to be comfortable in figuring out what are those differentiators They're going to make us unique. So therefore, we're going to be able to get buy-in because we're going to get people to align to the differences, and they're going to choose us because of the differences. And now all of a sudden you have this understanding that, hey, you know what? This is how we do it here. Our language is different. How we talk, like how, if you played against us or watched us or whatever, like our language and our offense, right? People come to practice, they say it sounds like it sounds like a foreign language. Well, language creates exclusivity. And anytime you can create exclusivity, you're going to get buy-in. If you're replicating, you're never going to be able to get to exclusivity. And I think that's the challenge of coaching. I had a chance, coach knows this, my obsession with Steve Spurrier, but I had a chance to sit down with him for a couple hours last summer. And the first piece of paper he gave me was, and this is classic Coach Spurrier for anybody that knows him, but the very first piece of paper he gave me was basically 5 coaches that got their first head job the same year he did in the 80s. And he, of course, had their records in parentheses, and the records were not good. And most of the 4 got fired in the first 2 to 4 years of them getting their job. And his point to me was, if you decide to do it the way everybody else is doing it, it's probably going to happen what everybody else is happening, right? And so we've got to differentiate. So analytics, I want to say that first, like if you're just sitting on Ken Palm and you're just sitting on Synergy and you're just doing things that everybody else is doing, well, when you go into games, you're not going to have the ability to be different. So, for years here, we've, early on, we had a analytical service that we used that not a lot of people used. Well, now a lot of people are using them. So we're not using them anymore because at that point, like everybody's getting that data. And so that data doesn't really do anything for you. So first question is where you differentiate. 2, is it a leading measure or is it a lagging measure? And I think this is a big mistake in analytics right now when you form your analytics strategy. It's very easy to look at lagging measures. Okay. What's a lagging measure? Well, turnover percentage is a lagging measure. So the number that is spitting out is lagging from something else that's taking place that's creating that number. So when you measure that number, it's easy to say, well, hey, you know what? Turnover percentage was high. The problem is since that's a lagging metric, it's not going to change necessarily what you're doing. It's just telling you what you're doing. A leading metric is going to be something that you're measuring that's going to somehow or another impact that turnover percentage. And so the hard part in our business is figuring out what are the leading measures that you've got to create for your independent team based on your personnel, based on how you feel like your team has to win, that now at the end of the day, we can hopefully spit out positive lagging metrics. Well, most of the stuff that you get on these websites, it's all lagging metrics, right? Because it's not program specific. It's not value specific. And so for us, we're constantly looking at those things. So if you watch this play and I'm not going to go into a lot of the details of what's on these things, but I'm trying to give you a framework of things to think about. I have somebody on our staff that sits behind our bench during timeouts, and there's a card, and the card is going to have 4 metrics on it. And so those 4 metrics are going to be leading metrics that I can look at in the game during the timeout, and I can see trend lines. And so what that does is that directs my attention on what I need to focus on in that current timeout to see if we can push some lagging measures in a positive direction. It's not rocket science, right? It's basic things that we have to look at that, hey, this is what we want to do. All right. So I'm gonna pop on a few things here. I'm gonna try to give you guys some interesting things that hopefully can help you a little bit. The first, we talked about this, when we talked about habits. I meant to go over some of this stuff. I want to help you here. 10 pages a day. And my admin helps me with this, but I type my book notes. I think it's something that that if you get into reading, you should do as well. I'm going to share my screen for a little bit here. And let's see. See if this works. All right. Hopefully everybody can see this. Sure what this means. All right. So we talked about habits and different things like that. I wanted to show you a little bit of this. Everybody talks about wanting to be a head coach. We talked about time management, the amount of time I put into scheduling my week. I spend Sundays really trying to get a grip of my week. And so I really feel like this is a weakness in our business right now. I think people are just running by their tails and not spending enough time planning their time. So for me, everybody wants to be a head coach. Well, there's not a lot of golf and hunting and fishing and hanging out on here. It's really, once you get to this part of the season, you're pretty much all in. But I think we have to make sure, people say in this business, you can't have good family and you can't stay healthy. I think that's a total lie. I think the big thing though is you have to be able to plan forward. And so, my strategy in terms of how I plan my days, obviously anything purple here is going to be anything program related, whether it be staff meeting, whether it be team meeting, whether it be practice. And you can see kind of my color coding up here. My light blue time is going to be planning time. I think that people don't spend enough time planning. I think if I'm an assistant, if I'm a head coach, whatever I'm doing, you have to have time to plan what you're going to be doing. And this has to be a long time. And this has to be something that is obviously something that is sacred and protected. And then also you can see the green is my strategy. So this is when I'm watching film. This is when I'm, in a situation where I'm looking at practice and and all the things that we've got to do there. Blue is workout time, and then you'll see obviously anything yellow is going to be something I have to do, whether it be traveling, whether it be administrative or anything Furman related. So you can see my morning routine and all that on here. And then, also our master calendar here, staying 13 months out. This goes into planning, right? So this is a master calendar, which I do myself. And, you can see basically everything that's going here. I can go through this right here and I can tell you when I'm off in May. Okay. So I can see last 2 weeks, our staff is off in May. I can tell you when I'm going to be recruiting next year based on the new periods, the weekends that I've got to be out. I can tell you when my break's going to be in August. I can tell you when our staff retreat's going to be. And very, very important that as coaches, we're elite planners. So other than that, I was going to show you, these are some of the book notes I was telling you about. This is Radebaugh. If you haven't read that, it's a great analytic book, Man and Machine. I'm a big believer in that. You've got to make sure at the end of the day, you're not just sitting on the metrics. But here's what I want to get to. All right. So here's a metric that we made up and giving you a little bit of inside baseball here, but this is good. We did this offseason. We call it ball in the air. Okay. So it's a little bit like Vegas betting, like, hey, when the ball goes up in the air, what's the predicted value that we're going to get on that shot? So it takes free throws out. It's just strictly looking at shot quality. Okay. So basically what this formula has done is you can see all of our teams here. Okay. All the games. And what this does is unique. It's where it's different than points per possession and where it's different than your PPPs and different things like that. It's going to assign the actual volume of your 2-point and 3-point percentages. And it's basically going to take your points per 2, points per 3, and it's going to take the exact percentage of your volumes to get a predicted value of what your ball in the air is. Okay. So you can see every time our first team put the ball in the air, all right, we got a 1.11 ball in the air. So that was the expected value of all those shots. Our second team in 18-19 was a 1.12, 1.11. 2021, we led the country in 3-point field goals that year. We were 1.14. Then we were 1.12. And then that magical team 2 years ago was 1.11. So all of our first 6 teams were pretty consistent. Last year, you can see a huge drop, 1.04. All right. So every time we put the ball up last year, we only got 1.04 points of possession. So then we start breaking it down. Okay. These are some of our best players here. Hey, where did that take place? What were those values? We started looking like, hey, we went back right here all the way to Mike Bothwell 2 years ago. Every time Mike Bothwell put the ball in the air, he was a 1.16. Every time Jalen Slauson put the ball in the air, he was a 1.23. Okay. JP was a sophomore that year. He was a 1.01. Marcus was a 1.04. as a fourth-year player. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is last year, their numbers didn't change a whole lot. Okay. JP's went up to a 1.04. Marcus's actually went down to a 1.00. All right. And so what we started looking for is, our returners that we actually have 8 returners this year, were 1.09 last year. And the guys that ended up leaving were a 1.01. And so then we started looking at our recruits. So these are the guys we signed out of the portal. All right. And 3 are still here, 1's not. And you can probably take a guess looking at ball and airs, 1.27 Tom House, 1.23 the Charles Johnston, 1.10 Nick Anderson, and then we had a 1.04. And so what we've really started pressing on with our team is what's your responsibility in making sure you take the best quality shot, and then basically being able to also coach these guys on their distributions of 2 and 3. Okay. So we've actually got some guys where we're calling them their shooting splits. So what's their split from 2? What's their split from 3? Well, right now in practice, we have guys that they have assigned range splits of where we want these 2 and 3s. So if you look last year, we won 17 games, had a winning season, but I don't think we got the best last year. And a lot of it was because the ball didn't move quite as well as our previous teams have. And because we didn't trust each other to play inside those concepts. But if you look and you see, right, our 3-point volume got a little bit too high last year for a ball in the air that at the end of the day wasn't very good from 3. So we shot too many 3s at an expected value that was just way too low. Okay. And then we had some guys, especially Marcus, when you look at his points per 2, he was at a 1.12. Okay. Well, we should have had Marcus taking more 2s, right? Well, you look at JP, he was a 0.98 from 2. All right. And then you look at it, he took 2-point percentage was 49.2, but you come over here to 3s, he was a 1.09 point per possession from 3. But you look at the volume, he was at a 55-41 split. We probably should have had him more at a 65 split, right? Because he's getting 1.09 points per 3. He's getting 0.98 points per 2. Well, let's shoot a few more 3s. Well, Marcus was the opposite, right? His 3-point volume was 51%. But when you look at what he was getting from those, he was getting 0.89 on those 3s. Look at his 2s over here, 1.12. He's shooting 56% from 2, but he's only taking 2s 48% of the time. So can we see this in game? Absolutely, right? Can we see historical data that, hey, we've never had less than a 1.10, all right, or 1.11? So now everything we've done this summer, everything we've done this fall, one of the 5 things that we're measuring right now, only 5, is what is your ball in the air? So far in 3 days of practice, we only have 1 player that's under 1.10 ball in the air. And the reason is because we've been emphasizing it like crazy. Okay. We've been all about it of like, hey, you've got to be responsible for this number, because last year we had some talented players. We didn't depend on each other quite well enough. When we did, we were really good. Okay. 17 wins. We had 19 assists. We shot 35% from 3. In the 16 losses, we had 13 assists and we shot 29% from 3. All right. So what we're trying to teach our players is the more this ball moves, the more efficiencies are going to go up. And so we're tracking raw passes per player, per possession. And then we're trying to look and see where's the relation to ball and air in this, to convince our players that the more the ball moves, the more you're going to score and the more efficient we're going to be. And the more efficient we're going to be, the more games we're going to win. Okay. So when you look at down here, the 2 best players on that team 2 years ago, I mean, every time Jalen got the ball, he was a 1.23. Okay. That's elite. All right. Really, really good player. And so this is just an Excel sheet, right? This is just us. All right. You're not going to find this on KenPom. You're not going to find this on Synergy. This is something we're doing this unique. We talked about the passing. That's something, if you watch this play, we didn't lose a game last year where we averaged 4 passes a possession. And so again, I know time's getting up. I could go on this stuff all day, but just really trying to give you guys a few things where you can kind of shape it. And really at the end of the day, try to think, what does our team need? What does this team need to win? Does this align with our program values? And then is this leading or is it lagging? And then is this creating a differentiator that can help us go win, and just measure that? All right. So don't measure 25 things. Measure probably, I would say at the most, I'd say 6 things at a time. And I think you'll have a lot of success if you do it that way. So, Coach, that's all for me. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Coach Richey, thank you. You gave us your heart this morning, and this is I know you could talk about this all day, and I'm sitting here praying that coaches across the country are taking notes, because the analytics was so impressive, but your heart is even more impressive. And I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for coaches like you, and there's so many that are still doing this thing and jumping over the hurdles to get to the hearts of players. And it's no coincidence you've averaged, I don't know, 25 wins a season, and the Furman program is thought about so highly across the country. And so thank you for giving us your time during the first couple practices. And you're elite, and we thank you, and thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. And
have a great day.
Y'all as well. Thank you.
Okay. So hang in there. Super excited about our Nations of Coaches character moment from the legendary Dale Clayton. So Coach Clayton, we're so excited about what you're going to say.
Well, thank you, Barclay. I just want to talk about the influence of a coach. And I want to use my college coach, Phil Worlds, as an example and the influence that he had on me. Playing for Phil Worlds has been life-changing. He taught me winning a game is only or even good, but it's not more important than winning at life. He taught me that winning a game is fun and can be exciting. However, learning to serve others is life-changing and fulfilling. Coaching is a great opportunity to serve and demonstrate the love of Christ through my coach. From age 18 to 26 as a player and assistant coach, I learned more about what a dad and a husband look like. Now, I could have learned that from my dad, but I was too busy being a child and too young and too selfish to pay attention. But most of all, I'm thankful that my coach was and is a Christian. He coached us as he demonstrated Christ's love to us. He was very intentional in his teaching, coaching in every aspect, stern in his discipline, but loving in his administration of both. His discipline was firm, yet with love. And in the 8 years I was with him, 4 as a player and 4 as an assistant coach, I never heard him berate a player or disrespect a player using harsh language. We often ate at Coach World's house and benefited from his Bible studies. His influence on me was subtle but profound. I decided on a career in coaching instead of law. I wanted to be like Coach World in every respect. A Christian man who loved Jesus, his family, and influencing his players to be godly. Men who know that being great is more important when you're a servant than just obtaining wealth. I did not know it at the time, but I wanted to be a 2 Timothy 2:2 man, even though I didn't know what 2 Timothy 2:2 was. But what it said is that the things you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, teach to other men who will teach others also. You know, I hope that in my 37 years as a college coach, I have honored Christ and represented Coach World well. I hope my players, at least the majority of them, will say that Coach Clayton loved me, respected me, and demonstrated what a Christian father, husband, and man looks like. I hope my peers will say that Coach Clayton is a Christian coach who God used to demonstrate his love to others, coaches, by being a servant to them. Coach Clayton is a godly man of influence, just like his best friend and college coach, Phil World. What I've learned from Coach World. And what I've learned is that loving people and serving people is better than anything else, and that you have an opportunity to have that influence on your players. That's why I love Nation of Coaches. Our vision to equip coaches to leave a legacy of excellence, and especially our mission, which I saw in my coach Phil World, to see coaches and all whom they influence impacted for the glory of God. And I pray that as a coach, you will have the impact on your players that Coach World had on me.
Coach, if you have an opportunity to be around Dale Clayton, take that opportunity. He is my mentor. He means the world to me. And if you have a chance to be around him, you're going to be a better person and a better coach. Thank you. Thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you so much. If you need more information, if you want more from Coach Richey, here's his email. Please email him. There was a lot there. He gave us a lot of good stuff. And so email him and he will get you the information that you need about analytics or any other topic that he talked about. If you need more information from Nations of Coaches, email me. We're super happy to connect you with anybody in Nations of Coaches, any of our services. Our goal is to serve you, coaches. Our goal is to connect you with you and to equip you. And so next week, wow, James Borrego from the New Orleans Pelicans. What a great opportunity to learn offensive basketball. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible, and it's going to help you win games. So thank you so much. Have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 a.m. at our preseason growth series with James Borrego. God bless.